Jill Matson here, talking about the ancient Egyptian magical Sephiroth. The Sephiroth in ancient Egyptian beliefs are energy portholes to higher divine energy. They're doorways to streams of God's attributes, of His higher dimensional energy, of all consciousness and all awareness. There are 10 Sephiroth in the Tree of Life, and each representing an aspect of God. The 10 Sephiroth are like jewels, and they come together to form the crown of God. We think of the Sephiroth in the Hebrew tradition of the Kabbalah, in the Tree of Life. And in the diagram, the Sephiroth are represented by circles with sacred symbols, sacred letters. The tradition is far older. The tradition of the Tree of Life and the Kabbalah is rooted deep within the ancient Egyptian mysteries. Recall that Moses, in the Bible, was raised as a pharaoh's son. As a pharaoh or a pharaoh's son, he would have access not just to the deepest secrets of a temple, but to the deepest secrets of all their temples, each developing different techniques, information, knowledge, methods, and powers. So when Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, he took with him their deep, rich banks of knowledge. And today, we mostly recognize the Tree of Life from the Hebrew Kabbalah tradition. In the ancient Egyptian ideas of the Tree of Life, one of their gods in their pantheon guarded and embodied each Sephiroth, or each aspect of divinity, or each strength, each higher consciousness. So their most powerful gods are not only guarding the higher energies of God and preventing them from coming from ordinary humans, but they are an aspect of God. You could make an analogy that Moses' God was like a clear prism, and as white light were to shine through it, it would break into rainbow colors. And each color of that rainbow would be an aspect of the divine. Said differently, each color of that rainbow would be a Sephiroth, and each color of that divine breakdown of God would also be a god or goddess in the Egyptian pantheon. The power and the strength and the endurance of this magical Egyptian culture that lasted for 3,000 years at least had a lot to do with their mastery over spiritual mysteries, energies, and techniques. The Egyptians had a fascination with life after death. Think to the amount of their resources that went in to build a pyramid or a tomb for their pharaoh. Think of the extensive steps they took to mummify important people, to preserve their remains, so that the deceased physical body could resonate with the afterlife spirit and help the soul gain higher accesses to divine energy. And then the idea was that the pharaoh and important people would then guard over and shine that energy back on its motherland, Egypt. The Sephiroth also suggest their fascination with spiritual mastery, with each Sephiroth being a blueprint of the most powerful divine energy of all that is. They would stare at these symbols that they had for the Sephiroth and associate with the god of the Sephiroth, to ingest little drips and drops or anything, any resonance or energy that they could ingest of the divine. It was worth whatever time and energy it took to stare at the Sephiroth patterns or to meditate and ingest on this divine energy to embody this Sephiroth. Why were the Sephiroth guarded by their gods? Why was this energy not given to everyone? The understanding that you get from ancient masters is that we as souls agreed to embody as a human being. All of us starting off with being all that is or being connected to everything, and we slowly stepped down our energy, crystallized into matter, became more dense, appearing and feeling that we're separate from one another, so that we can experience motions like forgiveness and kindness. Not necessary. At some point, God decided to experience life in different ways by descending and crystallizing into matter. To experience life, for example, as a human being. The tree of life represents the path of God, going from all that is to slowly crystallize, slow down, step down, the all that is consciousness and energy into a variety of aspects or different pockets of God energy. The old saying from antiquity, as above, so below, mirrors the Sephiroth. The Sephiroth contained the higher octaves, the higher consciousness, and the higher energy of the blueprint of all that God is, or all that is, or all consciousness, all awareness. But we on earth, we experience shadows, maybe faint holograms or just little thumbprints of this huge, powerful divine energy. So we have a shadowy, lower, dense form of the energy blueprint of all that is. Again, so above as below. And the Egyptians believed that their gods guarded these different gateways so that we could have these marvelous experiences, learn to be on our own, learn to be responsible, learn to understand things like forgiveness and mercy. And when the time was right, the keepers of these portholes, or perhaps the higher energy beings, left breadcrumbs. They wrote down the patterns to unlock these Sephiroth. So they left a method in which we could undo these locks to receive this powerful energy again. How would a higher evolved being lock an energy stream? Well, today, if I wanted to lock something, I'd get a steel box and just a little lock that required a key or a code to open it. But if you're like a fairy ghost or something, you could just interpenetrate right into that box. It's certainly not locked. They would stop subtle energy streams with subtle energy. They stopped and blocked these subtle energies with patterns of sounds and harmonics. Think to string theory, when everything at its smallest infinitesimal level is simply little vibrating strings, that if they were to dampen, stop, knot, these strings, they're going to stop the flow of vibrations. So they're locks for sounds, colors, lights, harmonics, a component of sound. In In antiquity, there were many methods to transpose like musical octaves or just a different level of the same energy. They had methods of changing the energy of their letters in their alphabet to musical notes and to convert those to numbers and to colors and to shapes. So all of these energies were studied, and they figured out how energy transferred between which color, which shape, and which number. Ancient people left the patterns and the number codes, the sound codes, to unlock these portals carved in stone to remain after long periods of time. Today I've worked on creating Sephiroth sound attunements. The ancient method was to look at the shapes of the Hebrew letters were actual sounds of creation. The complete alphabet of the Hebrew letters represented the building blocks of creation of all that is. They would use their letters, their sacred letters, the shapes of their letters, which would embody the same sacred creative energy, to describe the magical Sephiroth. The disciples of the Kabbalah would spend long hours staring visually at the Sephiroth as if they were like a gate, and they would seep emanations of the higher energies through this visual picture. And there on the video for you to do the same. I created sound versions of the attunements using these transfers from shapes into harmonics, into pitches, and more. I've also included channel energies of the Egyptian gods that are associated with each Sephiroth, along with the numeric or the number energy of each Sephiroth in the form of master number frequencies. Also included are frequencies created by sacred geometry, items in nature, and many other healing frequencies. The Sephiroth, the deepest secrets from the ancient Egyptians, well hid because of its value. There were marvelous secrets in each and every temple of processes to manage subtle energy, magic, for the benefit of their civilization. But the Sephiroth was like a blueprint, the crown jewels of all of their temples and all of their God Pantheon combined. Enjoy the Sephiroth. Blessings.